So just be kind with yourself. This is a new way of being, a new language you're embracing. The other thing that we did last week is we talked about coherence, heart coherence, where we're breathing into the heart space or the energetic field of the heart area, right? Breathing in and through that area. And what does that do? It opens the heart, thank you, right? It connects us because we normally talk from here up. We normally feel from here up. So what we do when we do that is we are engaging totality. We're becoming one, embracing mind, heart, emotions. And what that does is it allows us to then operate in the frequency of love. You know I embrace what I'm talking about. Yes, I do. And it's so good to be with you this morning. It is to be on this journey with you. Because we are on the journey of the evolution of consciousness. Yes? We are here to look at new ways of engaging with each other in love and kindness, using the language of the giraffe. Right? Putting on our giraffe ears, right? Okay, so it's so easy to be kind to each other when we agree, right? When people are like us, same mind, we're all in that groove, it's so easy. But when people aren't in alignment or in agreement with our beliefs, I'm telling you, it's possible to be in loving kindness with them as well. And that's the work that we're doing here. However, to be able to do that work, we have to be able to step into neutrality. Neutrality means that we become an observer as opposed to a judger and a criticizer, right? But in order to be in neutrality, we have to be aware of what are our emotional triggers. Because when we are emotionally triggered, neutrality is not an option. It's not an option. When your hair is on fire, there's no neutrality, okay? So we're gonna look at that today. But before we do that, let's talk about last week, right? A little bit of review. Last week, we started our season of radical renewal. We spoke about learning the language of kindness, the language of the giraffe, nonviolent communication, and you had some homework, yes? Okay, well, I can tell you that I was pretty amazed, but myself, I remember us talking about, when you feel. How lovely is that, right? And I caught myself several times being the jackal. I was like, ooh, I just saw that. And I was in meetings with other staff people who were very much enjoying the moments of reminding me. What are we talking about this season? Yes. And it's really, I've told you in the past that I've done this maybe about 4 different times. And once again, it's another layer. I get to go a little deeper with this. I get to really embrace it and look at it from a new perspective. And so I've also asked the staff to be immersing themselves in the language of kindness, the language of the giraffe, because I need the support. And that's why we do it in community, so that we can all stumble together as we learn these new skills and these new tools. So how did it work for you? How did you find using the giraffe language? Was it a challenge? Was it easy? What was it like for you? No, that was not rhetorical. I'm looking for somebody to say something to me. Easy. Show off. Okay, got an easy. What else? It was difficult. What was hard about it? The need part. The vulnerability. Oh, those two together are just so huge. We as a culture, we have not been conditioned, first of all, to know what a feeling is. We always talk about what we think, right? And then to actually be able to say, I have needs. I have needs. And wouldn't it be nice if you would try to meet those needs? What? That's being really vulnerable. So, yes. Any surprises? For me, I was just really surprised at how much I'm just so intellectual and I'm so embodied in the jackal language. You know, I'm sorry, the cool kids, it's the jackal language, right? That's being used, being part of the group, the jackal language that we use. So it's really about retraining our brain to be in love and kindness with each other. So I'm going to invite you to continue to use this phrasing this week. Use it imperfectly, because what's going to happen over these few weeks is you're going to expand. It's going to become a little bit more sophisticated and less formulaic, okay? Just hold on and hang in there. It's kind of like, you know, when you take that Spanish class, hola, and you go around, hola, hola. That's all you know, right? And it's like, and then somebody starts talking to you in Spanish, and you're like, oh my God, hola, you know? So it's like that. So just be kind with yourself. This is a new way of being, a new language you're embracing. All right. The other thing that we did last week is we talked about coherence, heart coherence, right? Heart coherence, where we're breathing into the heart space or the energetic field of the heart area, right? Breathing in and through that area. And what does that do? It opens the heart, thank you, right? It connects us, because we normally talk from here up. We normally feel from here up. So what we do when we do that is we are engaging totality. We're becoming one, embracing mind, heart, emotions. And what that does is it allows us to then operate in the frequency of love. Now, the other piece of that is when our heart is open, that we then cohere with each other, right? When our heart's open. And there's this meditation called loving kindness. Have you ever heard of that meditation? And loving kindness is really a beautiful tool that we can use to go into coherence with each other. So I'm going to ask you just briefly, we're just not going to do all of it, we're just going to do a couple lines from it. So I'm going to ask you to just go within for a moment and breathe into your heart center, a slow count. Inhale through that, 4, 5, exhale through your heart energy source, 4, 5. Do that for a couple more times. And you may start to feel a little sense of calmness, a sense of rightness in the world. And if you're not able to, then this is the moment that you pick something that you really appreciate. What makes your heart open in gladness? Is it one of your fur babies? Is it being in nature? Is it your significant other? And then that helps that open up more on a deeper level. And when you're feeling like you're in that flow, you get to then go into the meditation of loving kindness. And you don't have to read. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. Continue to breathe through your heart space. Think of someone in your life that you love, and now say this to them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. and may you be happy. What are you feeling? What are you feeling? Peaceful and at ease. Thank you, James. Serene. Thank you. Love, yes. Loving. Beautiful. That took us a whole 2 minutes. A whole 2 minutes to get there. Imagine being in that space when you engage with someone else. That's what we're doing. That's our work. There is also a song to this, which is called Loving Kindness, and it's done by Karen Drucker. Karen Drucker is one of our New Thought musicians that we adore, and you can listen to it. So if you're musically inclined, that can set you up for that as well. I use it. You can find it on YouTube, and the folks that are running the classes are also using that. And so over the next 4 weeks, we're going to use both of those, the heart center, the heart coherence, and the loving kindness meditation. All right, so we've kind of recapped. Ready to move forward? Okay. So we talked about neutrality, right? Being in that place of being an observer to just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. But what often gets in the way are our emotional triggers. So I want to talk about what are emotional triggers, right? Emotional triggers are memories, experiences, people, events that spark an intense emotional reaction regardless of our current mood, right? And this change can be abrupt. And the more severe the emotions and feelings are, lets you know you're in a triggering moment. Now, some of these, not all of them, are from post-traumatic stress disorder, right? What does that really mean? Because she's doing the psychobabble thing again. I'll give you an example. As many of you know, a couple of months ago, one of my dogs needed to be put to sleep. His health was failing, and that was Ziggy. And Ziggy was 14 and a half. And in the last couple of months of his life, I started finding myself yelling at him, just yelling as his bodily functions were going. I was just yelling. And I knew because of the intense response and reaction that I was having that didn't make sense to what was going on, that I was having an emotional trigger. But I couldn't figure out what was causing this, what is going on. So we were all miserable in the household, right? The dog was miserable because mom's like, rah, 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 right? I'm unhappy because I'm, rah, 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 rah. And poor Graham, don't even go there, right? So I knew I was stuck and I needed help, so I went to my therapist, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I just keep yelling at him and this poor baby. And he says to me, you're in anticipatory grief. And I went, anticipatory grief, you knew that his end is coming, that it was getting closer and closer to the time that you would have to make the decision to put him to sleep. And I didn't want to make that decision. And every time his functions failed, it was getting closer and closer to that, right? So there was the need that he would be with us forever and he'd be healthy and joyous. And the reality that life is this, right? That dying is part of this life. And I have to tell you, from the moment that I understood what was happening, what the hidden need was, why I was being a lunatic, it stopped. It stopped. And the last 2 months of his life was just not just going back to normally how we are loving towards each other, but there was this extra sweetness because I knew this was like our final moments being with each other. You know, when it was just sweeter, and just seeing all the little antics and the faces that he does. And, you know, he never met a stranger. Do you know what I mean? Anybody here who's had any engagement with him, he was just a love bunny. And so, you know, we had this amazing goodbye. And on the way to the vet, his favorite tipple was the McDonald's ice cream cone. And he's 5.5 pounds, so you know you couldn't do much with that because it would be a nightmare. And Gray and I stopped, and we got him the cone, and he was sitting in my lap on a little puffy snuggle thing and with the cone, and he was just going to town, and how joyous, how joyous. This is why we do the work that we do, my friends. Not because I'm making you or I think you should. No, for you to have amazing lives. Amazing lives. Because in that 2 months, it was the sweetest 2 months in that grieving. So, when we are having an emotional trigger, my friends, we feel that we are in survival mode. Our hair is on fire, right? We're just thinking, okay, how do I cope with this? We don't care about anybody else's feelings, right? We are hijacked. Our amygdala system, our reptilian system is flooded with adrenaline. We're in that fight, flight, freeze. Now they have fawn and flop as well, right? That's it. We're in survival. Do you think at that point I can be in neutrality? I can be objective? No. No. So this is why it's really important for us to understand what are like common situations that trigger us, right? So it's things like rejection and betrayal. Unjust treatment, I'm like to the moon every time that happens, right? And I have to work through that. That's one of my Achilles heels. Challenging beliefs. Why do you think all the stuff that's going on right now is so hot? We're challenging people's beliefs, my friends. They're all getting emotionally triggered and hijacked. Be aware. In my case with Ziggy, it was about helplessness and loss of control. I couldn't fix this, right? Being excluded or ignored, disapproval, criticism, unwanted, unneeded, or the opposite, needed too much and suffocated, right? Insecurity, loss of independence. And then when we have those things going on, sometimes there are physical components that go with that, right? The pounding heart, the sweaty palms, right? Upset stomach, shakiness, even body aches and pains. So these are all things to let us know, ooh, something's going on, something's happening here. And here's the thing, until we manage and take care of our emotions, we can't be present for anyone else. You ever been on a flight and you're like, oh God, here they come with all those instructions, and the flight attendant goes, okay, so when the oxygen mask drops down, what you need to do is you need to pull that down and apply it to yourself first, and then apply it to others. Do you know why they say that? Because you would be unconscious in several seconds if you don't put your mask on first. And if you're unconscious, you can't help anybody else. And that's really similar to our emotions. If we are unconscious about our emotions, what good are we to ourselves or anyone else? Amen? Okay, so how do you support yourself when you are emotionally triggered? I've got an acronym, CALM, right? Okay, so how do we do this? Not judge yourself. Not beat yourself up. Not go, oh, I'm so spiritual, this should not be happening. No. No. Be in a place of curiosity. Be in a place of curiosity. Oh, okay, what's going on here? When is this happening, right? In my example with Ziggy, I noticed the yelling was happening every time he was losing functionality. Oh, there's a clue, right? So something's going on there. So we're kind of in that Sherlock Holmes moment of just kind of figuring it out, being curious about it. And then acknowledging, I'm human. Humans have emotions. Yeah, that's one of the things we get. All right, so it's normal to have the emotions. So acknowledge them, and then look at what are the thoughts that you're having around that as well. And then take life-affirming steps, life-affirming actions, okay? Because if your amygdala is hijacked, what do you need to do? You need to ground in, right? You need to be grounded. And that usually happens with the 5 senses. So that's seeing, that's smelling, that's tasting, that's touching, that's hearing. So you do walking, you move your body, right? Get back into where you really are. You have a cup of tea. That's why we Brits have a cup of tea. Feeling sad? Oh, have a cup of tea. Feeling joy? Oh, have a cup of tea, right? So you're doing these things to get you back into your body and grounded again, okay? And then the M. Your emotions are whose responsibility? Yes, my friends, yes. No one else has to pay for my emotional triggers. It's my responsibility to manage my emotions. Don't make someone a monster because you can't manage your emotions. Did you hear me? Okay. Okay, so we want to know these emotional triggers so that we have the power to deactivate them. So then guess what? We can be present. We can engage in neutrality with others without being judgmental or critical or evaluative. Being an observer. And here's what Marshall Rosenberg, the author of Nonviolent Communication, says why we want to be observers. He writes this: the first component of NVC entails the separation of observation from evaluation. We need to clearly observe what we are seeing, hearing, or touching that is affecting our sense of well-being without mixing in evaluation. When we combine observation with evaluation, we decrease the likelihood that others will hear our intended message. Instead, they are apt to hear criticism and thus resist whatever we are saying. I don't know about you, but this really is powerful for me, and it explains a lot in my communications, right? Because being an observer without evaluation is a challenge. We've been taught from the time we could speak to evaluate what we see and what we do. And if you're like me, who's also intuitive, an empath, and trained to be hypervigilant, well, I got everything covered there, right? I'm like seeing, evaluating, telling you, criticizing, and then labeling you and diagnosing you, all right? So it's not easy. It's not easy, but we can do it. If I can do it, I know you can. I know you can. Hey, I'll tell on myself every time. Thank you. Thank you. So it's important for us to really be gentle in this process of retraining our mind, right? To be kind, to be observers. And on pages 30 and 31 in the book Nonviolent Communication, there are some really good examples of evaluative thinking versus being in observation. And a great exercise on page 34. So check it out and let me know what you think. Okay. Whoa, 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 feelings. Do you remember that song? Okay, I'm really old, so okay. What do we know? What do we know about our feelings? We know that if our needs are fulfilled, then we usually have feelings that are on the spectrum of what we call positive or good. And when our needs are unmet, then we tend to be on the bad or negative emotions, right, that we label. And I'm here to remind you that all emotions are of God. All emotions are valuable. Because even if you are in that denser emotion of sadness or anger, it's telling you something. It's letting you know you've got a need that is unmet. It's then allowing you to be able to deconstruct and figure out, well, what is it? What is it that I need? And then get your needs met. What a concept. Rosenberg tells us how indoctrinated we have become. We've been educated by people who try to make us feel responsible for their feelings so we would feel guilty. Yes, feelings are important, but we don't want to use them in that way. You ever hear your mom say, you know, you just break my heart when you won't get that A in school. We don't want to use them in guilt-inducing manner. It's very important that when we do express our feelings, we follow that expression with a statement that makes it clear that the cause of our feelings, our needs. Cause of our feelings, our needs. So nonviolent communication is asking us to flip the switch on our indoctrination, right? And to get clear on what we feel, right? So we have to access those feelings so that we can communicate what our needs are. It's moving from focusing on diagnosing what's wrong with everybody else in the room. You never do that, no. To understanding that humanness means we're all operating from a place of trying to get our needs met. Sometimes in weird and wacky ways, yes, but that's what we're trying to do. It's our humanity trying to get its needs met. And so what this awareness does is it moves us into spiritually knowing that there are no rights and no wrongs. There are no rights and no wrongs. There's just us poor humans trying to get our needs met in weird ways. Okay, so what do we know? Divine humans, we've been maneuvered and indoctrinated into a certain way of operating through believing that we can get our needs met through the denial of the divine, the denial of God, the belief in separation, and the guilt is the correct way to get our needs met. And so despite all of that, we know everyone is God in skin. But here's an interesting one that just blew me away. Nonviolent communication is asking us to take it a step further. It's asking us to realize that other people's behaviors isn't the cause of our feelings. What did she just say? Here's what he says. Feelings can be used in a destructive way if we try to imply that other people's behaviors are the cause of our feelings. This cause of our feelings is not other people's behaviors, it's our needs. Mic drop, right? Mic drop. So I'm going to leave you with that because I think that's just profound. You know, I always understood that, it's not the people, it's their behaviors. And I'm like, I don't like that behavior, right? And now we're taking it deeper. We're taking it to a new level. Responsibility lies where? Yep. Okay, so this week you're going to continue practicing your giraffe language. You're going to use calm practices so that you know how to manage when you're emotionally triggered. Yes? Okay, good. And then I'm here to remind you that you have the power to deactivate your triggers. You have the power to move into neutrality. You have the power that everyone you connect with walks away in peace and feeling respected and loved. Namaste.